Imagine stepping into a wooden box and the air temperature inside is like a relatively mild 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, which, for context, is significantly cooler than the inside of a parked car on a hot July afternoon.
Exactly. Yet within 20 minutes of just sitting in this mild environment, your body is pouring sweat, like as if you're running a marathon through the desert.
Yeah, it sounds completely counterintuitive when you phrase it like that.
It really does. But today, we're looking at a machine that basically tricks your body into doing exactly that.
Which is the fundamental promise of, modern home sauna technology. It's just a radically different approach to generating a biological response.
And it's a wildly popular one right now. So for this deep dive, we are looking at a very specific unit. It's the Dynamic Maxxus 3-person FR infrared sauna.
A very heavy hitter in this space.
For sure. Because here's the reality for anyone listening who has ever toyed with the idea of, bringing that high-end spa experience into your own home. The fantasy is incredibly appealing, right?
Oh, absolutely. You picture this glowing, perfect wooden sanctuary in your basement.
Right. But then you start looking at the actual market and you are immediately hit with this absolute avalanche of confusing specifications, wildly different price points, and this creeping fear that you are about to drop thousands of dollars on a giant pile of wood and regret.
Yeah, it is arguably one of the most stressful home appliance purchases you can make.
Really? More than like a fridge?
Well, yeah, primarily because you aren't just buying a refrigerator that you plug in and forget about.
Yeah.
You're buying a heavy, high wattage micro environment that you have to physically assemble, maintain, and will actually sit inside of. The stakes just feel much higher.
Yeah, that's true. Which is why we really need to cut completely through the marketing brochure today.
Definitely.
I want to understand what the Dynamic Maxxus actually is, how it works biologically, and, whether the reality lives up to the spec sheet. We're going to unpack the tech, the pros and cons, real customer reviews, and figure out who should actually buy this thing.
It's basically like buying a car that you have to assemble yourself in your garage. You have to make sure the specs match reality.
Perfect analogy. So let's start with that paradox I mentioned earlier, the 130 degrees thing.
Right.
Because if I walk into a traditional sauna at my local gym, it feels like I'm stepping into a 190-degree swamp.
Oh, yeah, the traditional ones are brutal.
Right. It's intensely hot, it's hard to breathe, and the heat just hits you like a physical wall. So how does this Maxxus unit accomplish a deep sweat at a temperature that, barely rivals a hot summer day?
Well, it comes down to fundamentally changing the vehicle used to deliver the heat.
Okay.
In that traditional gym sauna, you have a stove heating up rocks, right? You pour water on the rocks to create steam.
Yeah, the classic setup.
Exactly. And that steam severely heats the ambient air. Then eventually that intensely hot air conducts heat into your skin. You're basically relying on the air as the middleman. And it's really inefficient. And as you noted, it creates this stifling environment that a lot of people find claustrophobic or just physically uncomfortable to breathe in.
Yeah, your lungs feel like they're burning if you take a deep breath.
Precisely. So the Dynamic Maxxus completely removes the middleman. It bypasses the air almost entirely.
Wait, how does it do that?
Instead of a rock stove, it utilizes 9 FAR infrared carbon heating panels.
9 of them.
Yep, 9 panels. And these panels emit invisible light waves, specifically FAR infrared waves that sit at a very specific place on the electromagnetic spectrum.
Wait, let me try to map this to something I know. Is this basically like a microwave?
Oh boy.
Because, a microwave heats food from the inside out without necessarily heating the air inside the microwave itself. This is just a giant wooden microwave.
I hear that analogy quite a bit, but we really need to stop right there because a microwave would literally cook your cells.
Oh, yeah, that sounds bad.
It boils water molecules violently, which is completely destructive to human tissue. The mechanism here is entirely different, and I should emphasize, perfectly safe.
Okay, phew. So what is the mechanism then?
FEVR infrared is radiant heat. Think about standing outside on a freezing cold winter day.
Okay, I'm with you.
If the sun comes out from behind a cloud and hits your face, your skin instantly feels warm, right? Even though the air around you is still freezing.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes perfect sense. The sun's rays are heating my skin directly, not the winter air.
Precisely. That is radiant heat. FER infrared waves are on the safe, invisible end of the light spectrum. These waves actually safely match the resonant frequency of human tissue.
Resonant frequency meaning?
Meaning when those light waves hit your body, they penetrate the skin and gently cause the water molecules inside your tissue to vibrate.
Just a subtle vibration.
Exactly. And that subtle vibration generates thermal energy heat right from within.
So the air in the cabin is 130 degrees, but my internal core temperature is actually what's rising, prompting my body to trigger the sweating process to cool itself down.
Yes, you nailed it. And the manufacturer specs for the Maxxus highlight that they use carbon panels rather than the older ceramic ones.
What's the difference there?
Well, the carbon panels are 30% larger, and they distribute the infrared heat much more evenly. It eliminates those hot spots you used to get with the old ceramic tubes.
Oh, that's nice. No one wants one shoulder burning and the other freezing.
Right. And because carbon emits a longer wavelength, it can actually penetrate the skin up to 40% deeper than ceramic.
40%? That's a huge jump.
It really is. Biologically, this deeper penetration triggers intense vasodilation.
Which is the widening of your blood vessels, right?
Yes, exactly. That increases circulation and produces a massive purifying sweat at a much lower, much more comfortable ambient temperature. They also heat up about 30% faster.
And looking at the sources, the specs note these carbon panels never need to be replaced, which is honestly a massive relief.
Huge selling point.
But let's look at the physical environment you're sitting in while this is happening. The engine is impressive, sure, but creating heat is only half the battle. You have to actually trap that heat.
Very true.
The Maxxus is built from 100% natural reforested Canadian hemlock, and it weighs a staggering 425 pounds.
It is a hefty unit.
That is a massive footprint. But why hemlock specifically? Every high-end sauna seems to brag about the wood type, and I'm always sort of suspicious that it's just a fancy marketing buzzword to, artificially inflate the price.
Yeah, I get that, but it's definitely not just marketing in this context.
Yeah.
Wood selection is arguably the second most important component right after the heating panels.
Really?
Why? Think about the physical stress this box undergoes on a daily basis. It goes from a resting room temperature up to 140 degrees while absorbing significant amounts of moisture in the form of human sweat, and then it cools back down.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. This constant thermal expansion and contraction, it just destroys cheap wood.
I would imagine a porous wood would just absorb the sweat like a sponge.
That is exactly what happens. Cheap, porous woods will warp, splinter, and crack at the joints. Worse, they become a literal breeding ground for bacteria because they trap the moisture.
Gross. So the hemlock prevents that.
Yes. Canadian hemlock is incredibly dense, highly warp resistant, and naturally antimicrobial. It actively resists the buildup of bacteria.
Oh, that's really important for something you're sweating in.
Absolutely. Furthermore, the Maxxus uses 6mm thick interior and exterior planks. That density acts as a massive thermal battery.
Meaning it holds on to the heat better.
Exactly. It traps the infrared heat inside the cabin efficiently, which ultimately dictates how hard your heating panels have to work. That saves you electricity in the long run.
Okay, so the weight makes sense. The fact that it weighs 425 pounds, which I think is about 20% more than comparable entry-level models, is basically physical proof that you are getting substantial dense material rather than a flimsy plywood shell.
Yes, exactly. But we should talk about the reality of that 425 pounds for a second.
Oh, for sure. Because that is not something an Amazon delivery driver drops cheerfully on your porch.
No, definitely not.
If you're the listener sitting at home thinking about putting this in your basement, you really need to understand the logistics here. This arrives in multiple, massive, flat-packed boxes. You are going to need a friend, or maybe two, just to carry the panels down your basement stairs.
Absolutely. The weight is a testament to the build quality, but it is a logistical hurdle you have to plan for. It is a two-person job, minimum, just to move the pieces into the room before you even begin the actual assembly process.
Right. But once it's built, though, there are some very clever design features that address the comfort of actually sitting in a 130-degree box for 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, the usability features are great.
It has dual soft-touch control panels, one on the inside and one on the outside. That seems like a minor thing, but practically it means you can hit the power button as you walk past it to let it heat up, and you don't have to constantly open the door and bleed out all the trapped heat just to adjust the timer or the temperature while you're inside.
It's a critical usability feature.
Yeah.
But if we are looking at the thermal design, there's a much more subtle feature in the Maxxus that solves a notorious problem in home saunas.
Oh, what's that?
The floor heater and the lower bench heater are intentionally designed to run at a significantly reduced wattage compared to the main wall panels.
Yeah, I saw that on the spec sheet and it completely baffled me. Why would you deliberately underpower a heating element in a machine whose sole purpose is to create heat.
Because of the thermodynamics of proximity?
Thermodynamics of proximity.
Basically, how close you are to the heat source. In a lot of entry-level saunas, the manufacturer just throws the same high-wattage panels everywhere so they can brag about maximum heat output. But your feet are in direct physical contact with the floor panel, or resting just millimeters above it. If that floor panel is blasting at maximum wattage, you experience what users call burning feet syndrome.
Burning feet syndrome.
Yeah. Your feet become unbearably hot, sometimes to the point of actual pain, long before the larger wall panels have had a chance to properly raise your core body temperature.
Oh, man. So you end up having to cut your session short because your feet are on fire, even though you haven't actually started sweating yet.
Precisely. By intentionally reducing the wattage on the floor, the Maxxus ensures a gentle ambient warmth for your extremities, while those massive full-power wall panels do the heavy lifting of penetrating your torso and back to trigger the vasodilation and sweating.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. I love the intentionality there.
It's a very smart, user-centric engineering choice.
But let's look at the flip side of the feature list, because this is where I start to get a little skeptical.
Trevor, let's hear it.
Alongside the thick hemlock and the balanced heating, the Maxxus comes loaded with what feel like, honestly, shiny distractions.
The extras.
Yeah. It features chromotherapy, which is an LED color therapy lighting system, plus an FM radio and auxiliary input, and Bluetooth connectivity.
Right.
Now, reading through the sources, a massive red flag kept popping up. The Bluetooth connection on this unit is notoriously hit or miss.
It really is.
Multiple users report it dropping the connection constantly or just flat out refusing to pair right out of the box. So are these extras just gimmicks slapped on to justify the premium price tag?
It's a very fair criticism, honestly. We have to separate the core therapeutic technology from the lifestyle add-ons.
Okay, so break that down.
Take chromotherapy, for instance. It involves cycling through different colored LED lights. While it isn't a medically proven standalone clinical treatment, many users genuinely swear by it for enhancing the psychological relaxation of the space.
So it sets a nice mood.
Exactly. It sets an ambiance. However, your point on the Bluetooth is totally valid, and it's a known weak point across this entire model line.
Which is incredibly frustrating if you're paying thousands of dollars. If I want to listen to a deep dive while I sweat and the Bluetooth keeps dropping, my relaxing spa experience is suddenly, infuriating.
And if you are a buyer who demands seamless, high-fidelity wireless audio natively built into the unit, this will disappoint you.
Good to know.
The FM radio and the physical O input work perfectly fine, but you really have to view the Bluetooth as a flimsy bonus feature, not a core selling point. You are paying for the durability of the Canadian Hemlock and the biological efficacy of those carbon panels. The speakers are very much an afterthought.
That is a crucial distinction. Let's pivot and sort of balance the scales entirely here. What are the undeniable wins of this specific model, and what are the actual real hurdles?
Yeah.
We know the heat retention is a huge win. The fact that the carbon panels never need replacing is fantastic. I also noticed it carries ETL and CETL safety certifications.
Yes, and we really shouldn't gloss over that. ETL certification means it has been rigorously tested by a nationally recognized testing laboratory.
Meaning it meets strict U.S. and Canadian electrical safety standards.
Exactly. You are putting a giant high-wattage wooden heater inside your home. You're introducing extreme heat and moisture. You absolutely want independent verification that the internal wiring won't just spontaneously combust.
Yeah, avoiding house fires is generally a plus.
The ETL stamp, combined with their 5-year warranty, provides a massive amount of peace of mind.
All right, peace of mind is great, but I have a serious bone to pick with the preheat time.
Ah, yes, the preheat.
The manufacturer states it takes 35 to 45 minutes to fully preheat the cabin to maximum temperature. That seems completely unreasonable for a modern appliance.
It does sound like a lot.
If I get home from work at 6:00 p.m. and decide I want a sauna, I can't actually get in until nearly 7:00 p.m. Doesn't that totally defeat the convenience of having a sauna in your own house?
It certainly requires a shift in your routine. It's not on demand like a microwave.
Even though we already established it's not a microwave.
Right. But we have to look at the physics of what we're asking the machine to do here.
Which is heat up 425 pounds of wood.
Exactly. You are asking 9 electrical panels to uniformly heat 425 pounds of dense, cold wood, plus the ambient air, up to 130 degrees. That thermal mass takes time to absorb and radiate the heat.
Okay, I guess you can't rush physics.
No, you can't. This is where those dual control panels come in handy. Most users adapt by turning the unit on the moment they walk through the door, going about their evening chores or dinner prep, and stepping in once it's saturated.
I suppose that's fair. It becomes a ritual, not an instant gratification button.
Exactly.
But there is a much bigger hurdle that seems to absolutely blindside buyers, and we need to make this crystal clear. It's the electrical requirement.
This is, without a doubt, the single most critical piece of information for anyone considering this unit.
Yeah, let's underline this.
The Dynamic Maxxus requires a dedicated 120-volt, 20-amp electrical outlet.
I really want to emphasize this for you listening, because it's like buying a brand new electric vehicle, driving it home, and suddenly realizing you literally cannot charge it because your garage doesn't have the right wiring.
It's exactly like that.
Because standard home wall outlets, you know, the ones you plug your lamp, your television, or your phone charger into, those are 15-amp circuits.
Right.
The Maxxus draws roughly 2,400 watts of power. So if you manage to plug a 2,400-watt machine into a standard 15-amp circuit, what actually happens?
Well, best case scenario, you immediately trip the breaker in your electrical panel the second you turn the sauna on.
In worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, if your breaker fails to trip, you overload the standard wiring inside your walls. You melt the insulation and potentially start an electrical fire.
Wow. Okay.
Think of amperage like the flow of water through a pipe. A 15-amp circuit is a narrow pipe. The Maxxus requires a massive volume of water electricity to function. You just cannot force that volume through a narrow pipe.
So there is no adapter. I can't just buy like a heavy-duty extension cord from the hardware store.
Absolutely not. Extension cords are a severe fire hazard with continuous draw appliances like this.
Okay.
And you cannot just swap the plastic faceplate on the wall either. You will almost certainly need to hire a licensed electrician to come to your home, run a brand new, thicker gauge wire from your main electrical panel all the way to the exact spot where the sauna sits, and install a dedicated 20-amp breaker.
Which completely changes the math on the purchase price.
Yeah.
Based on our sources, you need to budget an additional $100 to $300, or potentially significantly more, depending on how far your electrical panel is from the room where the sauna is located.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to factor the electrician into the sticker price.
It's an unavoidable hidden cost. But assuming you navigate the delivery, the assembly, and the electrical installation, we need to look at what happens when this unit is actually operational.
Because specs and safety ratings are nice on paper, but the true test is the real-world application.
Exactly. And the general consensus is remarkably positive. Across more than 170 reviews on Wayfair, the Maxxus boasts a 4.6 out of 5-star rating.
That is incredibly high for a complex, expensive piece of hardware.
It really is. I was looking at a review from a user named Nick in Wisconsin. He specifically praised the roomy build and noted that the heat easily hit 150 degrees after about 45 minutes, which is actually higher than the manufacturer's stated maximum.
That's impressive.
And another verified buyer mentioned that even though it takes a while to hit peak temperature, they are pouring sweat within 20 to 25 minutes while the cabin is only at 135 degrees. So the biological mechanism of that FIR infrared heat is clearly working exactly as intended.
It absolutely delivers on the core promise. But, there is a fascinating nuance buried in those user reviews regarding the physical size of the unit.
Oh.
Yeah. The manufacturer explicitly markets the Maxxus as a 3-person sauna. However, the overwhelming consensus from the people actually using it points to what I call the tent rule.
The tent rule, like camping.
Exactly. If you buy a 3-man camping tent, it really only fits 2 people comfortably.
Oh, so true.
The same physical reality applies to the Maxxus. Technically, mathematically, you could squeeze 3 adults onto those wooden benches.
But it wouldn't be fun.
No. For a comfortable, relaxing experience where you aren't physically pressed against someone else's sweaty shoulder, buyers uniformly agree this is truly a 2-person sauna.
And if we think about the thermal dynamics we discussed earlier, if you cram 3 people into that box, the humidity from 3 people heavily sweating is going to drastically change the environment.
Not that much so.
It won't be a dry infrared heat anymore. It's going to get humid and swampy, which basically defeats the whole purpose.
Precisely. It alters the microclimate, so you just have to manage your expectations regarding capacity.
Good point. We also need to address the negative reviews because they exist and they're important. A minority of users, reviewers like Jennifer and Renee, experienced major hardware failures. We are talking about heating elements dying or entire digital circuit boards failing anywhere from a few months to a year after purchase.
Yeah, that happens.
Also, the assembly is frequently cited as a headache. Most buyers say it takes 2 people anywhere from an hour and a half to 4 hours to build. And bizarrely, a few people reported that their instruction manuals arrived printed only in French or Spanish.
The manual issue is a strange, though easily fixable, quality control quirk, since the English PDF is readily available online. But the hardware failures require a bit of perspective.
How so?
Well, when a manufacturer mass produces complex digital electronics that are explicitly designed to operate inside a 140-degree wooden box, a certain failure rate is mathematically inevitable. Extreme heat is the enemy of circuit boards.
Right.
This perfectly illustrates why that 5-year warranty is not just a nice bonus, but a mandatory requirement for purchasing.
That makes sense. If a panel dies in year 3, you want the company shipping you a replacement part for free, rather than owning a $2,000 wooden closet.
Exactly. Between the long-term warranty and the vendor's standard 30-day return policy, the financial risk of receiving a defective unit is heavily mitigated. You just have to be mentally prepared to potentially deal with a customer service department if you fall into that unlucky minority.
Okay, so synthesizing everything we have unpacked today. The deep penetrating carbon tech, the heavy antimicrobial hemlock wood, the strict 20 amp electrical requirements, and the real-world user experiences. Let's define exactly who this product is built for.
The ideal buyer profile is highly specific.
Let's hear it.
The Dynamic Maxxus is perfect for a couple or an individual looking to establish a regular deep sweat routine using genuine FAR infrared heat. It is for someone who has a dedicated space, a spare corner in the basement, a temperature-controlled garage, or a large master bath who prioritizes dense wood and long-term heat retention over rock-bottom budget pricing.
And crucially, the ideal buyer is fully prepared, both mentally and financially, to hire an electrician to install a dedicated 20 amp circuit before the boxes even arrive.
Yes, that is non-negotiable.
And on the flip side, we can be aggressively clear about who should skip this.
Please do.
If you are looking for a tiny, compact, one-person unit to slide into a bedroom closet, this 425-pound behemoth is entirely the wrong choice.
Completely.
If you're renting an apartment, do not buy this because your landlord will not let you rewire the breaker box. And if you absolutely refuse to deal with an electrician and you just want a sauna you can plug right into the wall next to your lamp, walk away right now. You will literally not be able to turn the Maxxus on.
That is the uncompromising bottom line.
Yeah.
But if you fit the right profile and you can clear that initial electrical hurdle, this is a very strong contender.
It really is.
It is a high-quality cabin at a highly competitive price point that genuinely delivers on the profound biological benefits of deep infrared heat.
I completely agree. It requires upfront planning, but it stands out as an incredibly durable investment for long-term health. So if you are ready to upgrade your home wellness routine, you can buy the product at the link in the description below.
You know, before we finish, there was one specific, almost hidden detail in the manual that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
The manufacturer explicitly notes that you should physically unplug this unit from the wall after every single use. The power cord is mounted right at the top of the roof, so you have to reach up and pull the heavy plug out of the outlet.
That's interesting. So it doesn't have a standby mode or like a smart home integration where you could just tell your phone to turn it off?
No, it requires a deliberate physical disconnection. And it made me think, we live in an era where absolutely everything in our homes is constantly connected, constantly drawing phantom power, always listening, always smart.
Yeah, everything is online now.
Perhaps the hidden, unexpected value of investing in a massive home sauna isn't just the obvious physical health benefits of the infrared heat. Maybe it's the rare, enforced daily ritual of physically unplugging a device from the wall, and in doing so, finally giving yourself permission to completely disconnect from the world.